guys. I never really know how to follow you guys. And such a nice worship session, and I come up here, don't really know what to say. Um, well, I get to introduce our speaker for the evening. Normally, when one comes in, I ask around, and nobody wanted to do it. So I'm like, yeah. I mean, I was prepared to because I wanted to do it anyway. So I'm kind of glad they all said no. Um, I can't remember exactly when I met you, Tony. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I knew who you were for a long time, but didn't really know you. And he started attending this church, and he invited me out to his house for a bonfire. Didn't really, okay, I'll go. I got nothing else to do. I show up out at this bonfire, and there's a bunch of people that I knew from another fellowship, and I'm like, I'll be danged. He's like running meetings out of his backyard, basically. And that really spoke to me on the kind of person he was. Because this was during COVID time. This was pre-COVID, or post-COVID, but it was something that started in COVID and carried through until much after. And it really spoke to me as a gentleman that didn't just look out for his own recovery, but he cared a lot about his brothers and sisters in recovery as well. And yeah, and I've gotten to know him really well in the last 6 months, and he's probably one of the most brutally honest people I've ever met, to be honest. He's really honest. Come on up here, Tony. Are you still nervous? A little bit. We're going to pray real quick then, all right? All right, God, I just thank you for Tony. I thank you for the willingness that you've given him to want to come up here and just share his story of what you've done and what you've accomplished through him, Lord God. And I just thank you for the brother that he's become in my life and the life of many others. In Jesus' name, amen.
Wow, that's really bright. Well, as you heard, my name is Tony. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ and recovering addict. I celebrated 5 years clean and sober January 19th of this year. I don't know, I guess I can start with my childhood. Growing up, I had a really good home, really good family. When I think about it, we had everything that we needed, a lot of materialistic things, we never didn't have, I had great parents. Both me and my brother were a month premature, so I was really small baby when I was born, and I wasn't a really big kid either when I was growing up. So as I got into, grade school and stuff like that, I got picked on quite a bit. But just to back it up a little bit, there was one day in kindergarten class, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I got to kind of break the ice. I'm just kind of one of them guys that like to seek attention, and for whatever reason it was nap time, and we were all in a nap circle, and I got up and pulled down my pants and ran around the nap circle and went into the girls' locker, like bathroom. Like, what possessed me to do that, I don't know, but that's what I did, and here I am, standing in front of you. So like I say, I did a lot of silly things when I was younger, and and it's just who I was, I guess. Getting into my teen years, I started drinking around the age of 16. I remember one specific time we were camping with the neighborhood friends and my parents' friends and neighborhood kids, and we were out, I think it was on Namakan Lake, and they were having a good old time drinking and stuff, and me and Trav B, they put their drinks underneath the camping chairs, and we thought we'd be a sneaky and drink what they had left over, or what they forgot about, and that was kind of my first experience, and the first time I took a sip, I loved it. I liked the feeling it gave me. And, you know, it just kind of took me down a road where I didn't know where it was going. And so as high school went, you know, and things progressed, we had pit parties and things of that nature. And I always wonder why I wanted to keep going. You know, I was like the last man standing. Like everyone was responsible, and never, you know, they got their fill in, but I wanted to keep going, and it just, you know, caused me to, you know, pain in my life, and to lose focus on what was important. So after high school, my parents thought that, you know, maybe it might be a good idea for me to get a little bit of discipline, because I had no direction whatsoever at that time in my life. So I went into the U.S. Army, went down, signed up for 3 years. I went down in Fort Stewart, Georgia, or Fort Stewart, back up here, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic and AIT, and I had a pretty embarrassing moment. After basic training, my mom and dad and brother and the girl that I was seeing at the time came down, and we had graduation, and we had gotten split up, and we were able to go with our families for lunch, and I was kind of messing around. I wasn't paying attention, and one of the soldiers told me a time to be back, and little did I know that he was messing with me for not paying attention. And so I get back from spending time with my family, and they're all in formation. And the first thing that went through my mind, I'm like, oh, well, this is not good. So I reported, and I literally got smoked in front of my parents. All the other parents were there. Like, what I mean by that is like front back go, which is push-ups on your back, kicking your legs, and running as fast as you can in position for probably like 10 minutes in the mud in my Class A's. Like, it was probably one of the most embarrassing times of my life. So that's what I get for not paying attention. But, you know, after that was all done and the graduation was over, the drill sergeant came up to me, you know, and he explained, and you know, it was a lesson learned, you know, and, you know, you got to pay attention to things like that, you know, especially being in the military, and, you know, if we ever were at war. And at that time, that was 95, I went in and I signed up for 3 years, and we weren't at war. I was in for probably about, I would say about a year and a half. I went down to Fort Stewart, Georgia. That's where I was stationed. And one night, I ran into a soldier in my company, and he had an off-base friend or whatever bring some weed on base, and that was my first experience with marijuana. And I fell in love with that too. The feeling that it gave me, like, you know, it was different than alcohol, but it was just, in the end, it was the same. And, you know, I couldn't stop smoking it. And there was one in particular weekend, we had a new first sergeant coming to our company, and he wanted to come meet his soldiers on a Friday night. Little did I know, I was on the 3rd floor commons in the barracks, and you could smell it on the 1st floor. I mean, that's how strong it was. And I get a knock at the door, and I look through the people, and I see First Sergeant ranks, and I'm just freaking out. Like, oh, what do I do, you know? So I got rid of everything I possibly could, threw it up on the roof, and they had like these plastic cable things on the side of the building, and I shoved all my, you know, weed and stuff down that, and turned the shower on quick and threw a towel around my head, and opened the door, and my dealer happened to be there, and he pretty much pushed the first sergeant over just to get out of there and get out of the way, and that's what it was. And he came in and said, "Oh, Private Block, what are we doing?" You know, and he, of course, I'm freaking out, and I didn't want to tell the truth. I said they were smoking cigars, which was not the truth. And they did a search. They called in MPs, dogs, all that, and they didn't find anything that I had gotten rid of, but I had forgotten I had some paraphernalia in one of the garbage bags, and they found that. And I was confined to my barracks till 0600 hours. This was on a Friday night, 0600 hours Monday morning, and was to report to the first sergeant and company commander. Little did they know, I didn't last. I hopped on a plane the next morning, Saturday morning, wrote a bad check, and came back home to Minnesota. I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what to do or what to expect, and I just made the situation worse. But my mind was so clouded, and I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to. I was trying to stuff everything down and forget everything, and so I hid out at my buddy's house for about 2 weeks, and my dad finally got a hold of me because they got a hold of him, and they asked me if I wanted to come back. And of course, the first thing in my mind, I really didn't want to, but I did. And they sent me a ticket to come back, and I received 45 days extra duty, and that was after working 8 hours in the motor pool. I had to report. And I don't know if you guys seen. I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. I'm drawing a blank. Full Metal Jacket. I literally had to scrub the urinals and the tiles with a toothbrush. I mean, it was no joke. And I had random UAs, and but I wanted to show good standing and getting good graces back with the company, and so what I did is every morning, 0600 hours, we'd run like 2 miles, do our physical training and stuff, and I went up and grabbed the company flag, and I'd run around the platoon as everyone's running, and I actually, after doing so for a while, I actually, felt like, good about myself and thought I was doing good, and, I wanted to show them that, I made a mistake and wanted to better myself and be part of what I signed up to be. And so I was doing good for a while, and that lasted about, probably say 6 months, and we got a new soldier that came into our battalion. He was from Minnesota, and I started hanging out with him, and long story short, it brought me back to that place again, and I think we had a long weekend. I think it was like Thanksgiving or something, and we packed up his car with everything that we had, and drove back to Minnesota in like 23 hours, and that was the second time I went AWOL. I'm not proud of it. And of course, they caught up with me again, and they asked me again if I wanted to be, a part of the military and come back. And I told them I don't. This is not for me. This is, I just didn't want to go back. So they sent me a bus ticket down to Fort Knox, Kentucky to out-process. And, in my mind at that time, I thought for sure, I thought the absolute worst. I thought I was going to the Brig, which is a military prison. That's where my mind went. I was freaking out. But at that time, we weren't at war. So when I got down there, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was. All processing processing soldiers that had medical issues, and for people like me that didn't want to be a part of the military. And so I was discharged undesirably under a general condition, which is Chapter 13, one step up from a dishonorable discharge. I got really lucky. It could have been a lot worse. So I came back home here, and I felt like I let down, not only my parents but the government and myself and God, and I just felt less than, and it wasn't worth anything. I tried to enroll in Hibbing Community College, and it didn't last. And as soon as I got Pell Grant money, I took it and used it for the wrong reasons, and thought that I was going to be this big time dealer, and I had hope dreams that, being something that I wasn't, or what God intended me to be. But I got lost in the streets for probably close to 20 years. In and out. When I say in and out, I was in another program, which is Narcotics Anonymous, and I got involved with that, and I'd get a little clean time, and I'd go back out there, and stuff got rough. I'd put myself in detox or whatever, and get in treatment. And I think I went to treatment about 13 times, inpatient treatment, all around the state of Minnesota. And what I found was I was just running from myself, and I had many talks, I believed, in Jesus, and I forgot to mention it in my earlier years. I did go to church and Bible study and all that stuff, so I always believed. I just pushed them away, and so I had many nights, just in my conscience, and with him, knowing that I was doing wrong. So I ended up coming back here, and it was, kind of brought to my attention, through him, I got to do better. And I felt like the only way that I'm going to get clean and sober is if I face my demons where I started everything, and that's what I had to do. So I came back here, put myself in a halfway house, and I did a lot of things, I could go into detail, a lot of, gritty things that, that got me into trouble. I did a lot of, my dad, a lot of the times enabled me when I'd go into treatment, and he, in his mind, probably thought that he was helping me try to get back on my feet, but all he was doing was hurting me. And so he was kind of got to a point where, he was done with me. He washed his hands. There's still boarded windows up in the basement of his house because of where my addiction led me. I stole checks, and changed whatever I could, pawn stuff, just to feed my addiction. And so I had to go figure it out, and that's what I did. And I bet you it took 1.5 years for him to even come around. And by rights, I get it. I said I was sorry, and I said I was going to change for so many years, and I just couldn't get it. I couldn't do it, and I finally got to a point where, and like him and other people started to see a change in me. There's a Friday night meeting here in town here that I chaired religiously for 6 months. Every Friday night, I'd open the doors for other people who were struggling with things that I was struggling with, addiction, and that gave me a piece of accountability and responsibility that I really never knew, because I acted a fool for so many years, trying to be someone that, like I say, God didn't intend for me to be. And so with that being said, a friend in the program actually, who on May 31st, I'm doing a benefit for. She gave me an opportunity with a pretty well-known company, and stuck her neck out on the line for me and got me a good job. And I was there for about 3 years, and I loved that job. And it started me down the road of responsibility, and things started coming back into my life. And then I kind of got to a point where I was kind of getting tired of doing the same old thing, and whatever responsibility, life was getting boring, and I ended up falling back again. And a friend of mine in another program suggested Teen Challenge, and I ended up checking myself into Teen Challenge. I think it was 2000. I can't remember. I wrote all this stuff down, but I'm not even looking at it. I'm just going with what is going through my head and what he wants me to say. 2014. Yeah, 2014 I went in. It was a good program. It was probably one of the better things that I did in my life. It got me a lot closer to Jesus, and a better understanding, and knowing that he died for my sins, and I couldn't do this alone. And it was just a all-around good program. I learned a lot about myself. I got to meet a lot of good people, and that was the very first time I was introduced to Celebrate Recovery. I went down to the River Church. We actually were allowed to go with a group of guys that were in a higher level in the program, and I got introduced to Celebrate Recovery, and I loved it. One thing that I've found in my walk with Jesus is worship is where my connection is. It's where I feel most at peace, and I feel like He is with me. So I enjoyed that part of Celebrate Recovery, and and what the program had to offer. And I got out of Teen Challenge, and I got my own place down there, and I did well for a while, and I got off my medication, and just, I don't know, it was just, I was in a place where I felt like I was away from home, and the job I had wasn't going so well, and I just felt like everything was falling down on me again. And so I went to a kid that I went through Teen Challenge with, called me up one day and asked me for a ride and go get his paycheck, whatever, whatnot. And in my soul, I knew that he was using, and I knew that I didn't want to feel, and I wanted to feel that way again. And I eventually, long story short, relapsed again. And wasn't for Chad Loam, Chad L. I mean, I believe he's an angel. I met him in Celebrate Recovery. I mean, I believe he saved my life. I was up for probably 10 or more days, so scared, so paranoid, so probably the worst time of my life. And he came and knocked on my door, and seeing the state that I was in, and he brought me to St. Mary's emergency room. And the last thing I remember was being checked in. And next thing you know, I woke up in the cardiac arrest unit with a nurse rocking by my bedside, so high they thought my heart was going to explode. I was that far gone. And like I say, I firmly believe that he saved my life. And when I came to that day, I mean, I have goosebumps when I think about it. Quinn Cashinshear, God rest his soul, he died of a heroin overdose. And that was the point for me. Like, why did you save a wretch like me? I mean, it so easily could have been me. But I know it was him that saved me, you know, and I think about that time in my life, and the verse comes to me, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and for those who believe him, in him shall not perish and have eternal life. And so I took that and I ran with that, and I know that he saved me. I just know it. There's no other answer. It was him, you know. I have him on my forearm as a reminder every day, you know, that he died for my sins and he saved my life. So I came back home, and you know, things were really, really good. I got sober. I was, you know, doing everything that I needed to do. Had a good job, and had almost 4 years in recovery. And for the one and last and final time, I went back out for 2 days, and I was really involved in recovery. Like I say, and I believe, you know, everything happens for a reason. But there was 2 people in particular that I had met in the program prior to that, and they met me at the Freedom gas station in Virginia on 8th and 2nd Avenue, and that was kind of like a sign for me too, like, you can have freedom from this. And so I went to detox and treatment for the final time, and like I say, I have over 5 years again, and you know, my life is amazing. I got involved with church, and you know, Celebrate Recovery, and still going to the other program. And I want to talk a little bit about other struggles that I had. You know, when I got clean and sober, probably the first year or whatever, maybe 2 years, you know, I started looking good. I was responsible. I got a job. I got a house out in the country, and all these things. And in my active addiction, I couldn't attract a fly, like, let alone hold a pants around my waist. I mean, that's how bad, you know, I was. And so I didn't have any kind of female attention in my life, you know. And as bad as I wanted it, I never had it. And the whole lust thing became a big problem for me. And when I got any kind of attention, I ran with it, you know. And yeah, I'm not proud of it, but I felt like I was making up for time that I lost out on. And then I met a wonderful lady who's in the audience here, Tessa. You know, I met her, and you know, things were good for a while there, and I actually proposed to her. I made another mistake, you know. I cheated on her with a couple different women, and wasn't proud of it. You know, I know that that's not who I am or who I was supposed to be, you know, and I knew that she was meant for me. I just knew And I know now, deep down inside myself, that we're meant to be together. God put her in my life for a reason. And I'm grateful for that, you know. So we, you know, she never stopped loving me. She was, you know, she's always there. You know, obviously I hurt her, but she never stopped loving me for who I was and what I did. And so we got back together and started talking again. And yeah, like I say, mind you, I'd been living out in the country for a while, and then I got back up a little, but I had a trailer on the other side of the property. My dad's there, and I got rid of that, and I was staying in his basement again for a while, and you know, paying my way, you know, and but I got stuck in that, like, I mean, my dad's an alcoholic. You know, I asked him to be here tonight, but he told me he was going to come, but he didn't show. And I kind of think I know where he is. But you know, I just living in that, you know, living there and being around it. You know, the alcohol part didn't really bother me that much, but just having my own freedom and having, you know, doing what I could and wanted to with all the, you know, the women I was bringing home and stuff. It just wasn't a good place for me. And like I said, me and Tessa started working things back out again, and we ended up getting a house in Midway. And it was tough for me. It was tough for me to move in with someone when I've been living this bachelor life for so long and doing what I wanted to do and coming and going as I pleased. And but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, I wouldn't change it for the world. I love you, Tessa. I love the family that I have. You know, Sophia. And we got a dog. And, you know, it's not that I don't like animals, but it's just, he's growing on me, and, you know, I feel like we have that family that I've always wanted. You know, I remember in my addiction and stuff, like, I always looked up to my brother and his family. It's something I always wanted. You know, that picture up there, for so many years, I was so stuck and so lost that, you know, I was never around my niece and nephew, and they never, I mean, I get it, you know, they never allowed me to take them any places, and today I can do that, you know. That's why I put that picture up there, you know, and my brother's here tonight, and that means a lot to me too. My mom's here. My sponsor, Wayne, from the other program. There's a lot of people that have been there for me. My friend Kevin Green, who I met when I was in Teen Challenge, I gave my testimony, and like whatever it was that I said spoke to him, and we got together, and it's been good. You know, that friendship is still there, but I'm just really, really grateful for where my life is today. I never would have thought that I'd have a government job. I work for Virginia Housing Authority as maintenance, and you know, for all the things I did against the government and the law, here I am helping people, and you know, I run across that stuff all the time. You know, when we turn units and stuff, I see, you know, paraphernalia and all that stuff, and it doesn't even. You know, it's like not in my vocabulary. I almost feel like I want to throw up when I see that stuff. So I know that He has freed me from that. You know, I know deep down in my heart, you know, that's not who I am. That's not who He called me to be. And so I'm really, really grateful. I've been there for over 3 years. You know, I can't explain the gratitude that I have. I got involved here with Celebrate Recovery. I was coming for a while, and I had stopped coming, and I was coming again for a while, and I finally, got out of my own way and started to connect with the other guys and got involved in step study group, and really, really grateful for that. It's brought me closer to the guys, and I feel like it's a good part of finding out more about who I am and building them healthy relationships. So with that being said, I don't know where I'm at for time. I want to close with this, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, the plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a new future. And today I feel like I have that in my life. The family in my life again, a family of my own, and I consider you guys family. And for that, I'm really grateful, and thanks for letting me share.